What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fish the Moment live stream. Really excited today to break down the FLW Forestwood Cup. It was here on Lake Hamilton, which is about an hour from my house. I actually was out there trying to film a preview video for the event, and I lost like a 3-pounder at the boat, which would have finished out the video. Didn't see it on camera, so I didn't want to just put some video of me catching a bunch of tiny fish. So I do have some Sonar recordings and some fish catches to show you from my preview video. Also be showing you exactly where these guys caught their fish during the FLW Cup using Navionics, showing you some of the exact spots on my Sonar recordings, all kinds of stuff. And we'll also be talking about how they handle fishing in the dog days of summer offshore. That's what these guys are doing. They're fishing deep brush piles with crankbaits, finesse worms, stuff like that. Also some shallow stuff. So we'll talk about how to deal with these super warm temperatures into August and September, some of the toughest fishing of the year. And so for everyone who's joining after this live stream has been posted to YouTube, jump ahead to about the 10-minute mark. I'm going to be talking to people who are on the stream, going to give some channel updates, stuff like that. And so if you're here just for the recap of the FLW Cup, jump to the 10-minute mark, and then we'll go straight into the seminar format. I'll go from about 10 minutes in for about 40 minutes, talking about the Cup, talking about where these guys caught them, stuff like that. And I'll do a live Q&A at the end. And so if you guys do want your questions answered and you're on the live stream, just go into the chat, type @FishTheMoment, type your question, then put a bunch of question marks. I'll answer all those questions after the stream. So anyways, guys, what is up? Good to see everyone in the chat. As always, we got Ulysses, Sean, Jamie, Timo, Dale, Roger, Jim, Thad, welcome to the channel. Saw that there. We got Chris, JT as always. We got Kid Iraq. Let's see here, PK, all the regulars over here. Head Case Bates says, you are the man for offshore fishing. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And PK says, we made it. What's up, Butch? Magnetic Fishing Madness. How's it going, guys? Joseph and Michael. Good to see you. Johnny lost his razor. Guys, I've been like going, 2-3 days without shaving, and now that I'm not in the corporate world, so I feel like I'm going a couple days without shaving. I feel like now that I'm getting to be 24, 25, the facial hair is growing in a lot faster than I remember when I was like, 20 or like in college, and so I need to start shaving more often, but also like when you're waking up and going to the lake, sometimes I just, leave it a little bit scruffy or things like that. I think it gives me more of that rustic look, that wild man look, which probably helps with fishing, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, so we got here. One thing I read here, Dale, you said no fishing in hot weather. We're definitely talking about fishing in hot weather. That's what the Cup was fished in, super hot weather, 100-degree days leading up to the tournament. The actual tournament day was actually kind of cloudy and rainy. The guys kind of got a break, but the last day was brutally humid, 85% humidity, 95-degree air temperatures, and now it's like 100 degrees here in Arkansas. So we'll talk about all that. But good to see everyone in. Got 71 people on already, which is awesome. Let's see here. And Kirak says, hey, I need that fishing in hot weather, sad face. We'll talk about hot weather fishing next week. I'll make a video or a stream focus on that. I just completely slipped my mind that I had all this great content about the Cup. Not often am I able to make videos about tournaments on lakes I know. And actually just watching the FLW live for 3 days, I was able to see exactly where these guys were catching them, and I know the exact spots they were on. And so I don't know if the guys are going to be super happy with me giving up all their spots. Maybe some of the Hamilton locals won't like that either, but you guys know how the channel is. I show all the spots, everything I know, I share it with you guys, not holding anything back, so you guys can become better bass fishermen, even if I get beat up in the parking lots of my local lakes. So let's see here. Johnny the Wild Man memes. Uh-oh, that is not good. Let's see here. Got a bunch of people in here. Anyways, cool. So a couple channel updates, guys. A couple things I wanted to call out. First up, I'm just going to pull up fishthemoment.com because a few things I want to update you on as far as the channel goes. So let me get this pulled up over here and get rid of this logo for you guys. Switch this so you guys can actually see now. The fishthemoment.com. Basically, what I want to talk about, first up, we got Fish the Moment Bass Camp. Still got a couple more spots open for it, 2 spots. One guy's actually waiting in the wings, waiting for everyone to sign up, and so If you guys do want to sign up, Fish Moment Bass Camp is in Raleigh, North Carolina, second week of September. Talked about this before on other streams. If you guys do want to learn more, just go to my website. It's basically a 2-day, 3-night bass fishing boot camp. And we're going to be in Raleigh, North Carolina, fishing offshore. I'll show you how to find them offshore, the spots, how to read your electronics, all kinds of awesome stuff. We'll actually have on-the-water application, and it's really going to be focused on learning. Not really as much about catching fish, though we will catch fish, but it'll be a class where you can take these skills that you learn and apply them the rest of the year, the rest of your life on offshore fishing. And it's going to make you a great offshore angler, guaranteed. And so sign up here on my website, Fish the Moment Bass Camp. I have a full itinerary of the days. I went really in depth with the itinerary so you guys know exactly what you're getting into. And just send me an email if you're interested. You can also just give me a call if you're interested. We can talk through it that way as well. So other than that, a couple other things. I just today actually ordered merchandise. So that's right, merchandise. I don't know why I'm saying that word. It's not that cool of a word, but we have Fish the Moment hats coming. Not the flat bills yet. We're going to get the flat bills, don't worry, but I got the rounded off trucker hats, round bill trucker hats with the mesh in the back here. They have Fish the Moment logo just like this. I'm only doing a one-time run of the old Fish the Moment logo, and then we're actually getting a new logo made starting next week. And so this is going to be your chance to get the OG Fish the Moment hat and Fish the Moment gear. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. And then Butch says $20, a little donation for some razors. JK. Thanks, Butch. I will shave before the next stream now. Now I'm getting a little self-conscious. Or I need to grow it all the way out. I just need to not keep the scruffy look. But I appreciate it, Butch. Super chat. Anyways. Let's see here. Can we get a peek at the new logo? Don't have it even designed yet. I'm just talking with a firm. They're down in Florida. They're going to have us, we're going to do some creative testing. I have no idea what it is going to be like. We're going to start from scratch, and it's going to be focused on Fish the Moment. But hopefully it'll be a logo we can easily embroider on hats, put on sun shirts, buffs, sun gloves, all kinds of stuff, hoodies, so many different things I want to make for you guys. As far as clothing goes, I want it to be a cool design where even if you don't know what Fish the Moment is, you'll be like, oh, Fish the Moment, that's a cool phrase, that's a cool logo, you'll want to wear it even if it's not, if people don't know what the channel is, they'll be like, ooh, that's a cool shirt. So we're working on that, which is awesome. Johnny, only do without a beard that I trust. No OG flat bill. We might get an OG flat bill for you, JT, as well. Kind of depends on how fast these other hats sell out. So if you guys buy them really fast, then we'll probably do some flat bills as well because I love these hats. These are really nice. My other one's super faded. But just a couple more minutes here left. One other thing I want to call out before we jump into the FLW Cup breakdown is I added a new tab on the page. I'm trying to add as much content as I can for you guys every week. I know the videos have been a little bit slow. I've been doing a lot of on-the-water lessons, a lot of video lessons, and I've also been trying to get this logo and the bass camp and merchandise, all these different things. So running business by myself, doing it all on my own, is kind of a pretty massive undertaking. So trying to get everything streamlined so that over, by December, I should be able to get the videos out really consistently, get all this stuff out to you guys very consistently. But what I did do is add a My Top Baits tab. And this is super cool for you guys. So what this basically is I added my top fall baits and my top summer baits. And you can see here it's $0. It's basically free of charge. The reason I set it up like this is what you have to do is go through here and basically just click purchase for My Top Baits. You'll go through and you'll add some information here, basically with your email, and then payment is free, so you don't have to do anything. So just check it out. This is just the easiest way to do it on the website. So you don't have to pay anything. This is all just randomly, but you can add both these to your cart. And what you do when you check out, I'll actually pull up on my screen what this is for you guys because this is super cool. Let me pull this up over here. So basically, I'll give you my offshore recommendations for baits. And this is like very thorough stuff. It's completely free to you. And basically what it is, for guys who do my one-on-one lessons, I have been sharing this with guys, and I also have been sharing I added a new one, which is new fall baits. But it's basically, if you look at this, breaks it down by type of bait, the brand that I like to use, and then the bait color for each water clarity. And so this is like my Fish Moment's best summer offshore baits. I have links directly to Tackle Warehouse, and I have a ton of different baits. These are all the baits. If you got these baits, these are all the baits you're ever going to need for offshore bass fishing in the summer. And so it's compiled here in an easy list for you based on your water color, water clarity. I tried to keep the colors pretty easy, so there's not like a ton of colors you have to buy. If in any case you can just have to buy like 1 or 2 colors, I try to make that pretty easy. One thing I would say is if you don't want to buy every single bait in every color, just stick with this middle column, the bait color from 1 to 3 foot water visibility. That'll get the job done most of the time. So just, if you want to, just stick with the center column and you're going to be good. And again, we have this for the summer baits and the fall baits for download for free on the Fish the Moment website. And so you can go here, click on it, and I'm going to be adding these as I go, just as I find some time, adding fall baits. I'm going to talk about best baits for suspended bass, best baits for other things. And if you do have anything that you want to ask about specifically, just leave a comment on a YouTube video, send me an email, things like that. If there's certain, like a bait guide you want me to make, and I'll make that. And one thing I will call out with that is that in that there were some Tackle Warehouse links. And so the reason that I'm giving this out for free, just so you know that, is if you use these links for Tackle Warehouse, I do get a small cut of the profit. So just so you guys know, I'm putting this out there, so hopefully you guys are using these links. It gives me a small cut of the profit. It's another kind of revenue stream for me, but it's also a great way to get the information out. So you guys know I obviously have to make some money off of this. So just want to let you guys know that's why I'm doing it. That way, just giving it out for free, I am monetizing it here. So I know some people are like, what's the catch or whatever, but just, if you guys want to support the channel, if you don't, if you just want to go to your local tackle shop, perfectly fine as well. No problem there. Always good to support the local tackle shops who have the good baits. So either way, just wanted to call that out for you guys. And so that's enough of that. We're at the 11-minute mark, and so I want to jump straight into the content here. And so going to get rid of this tab, and we're going to go straight over to the results for the FLW Forest Wood Cup. And so basically what we have here are the final results from 3 days. And so what we're looking at here is Bryan Thrift winning the cup. Day 1, 15 pounds. Day 2, 12 pounds. Third day, 10 pounds. Had the heaviest bag of the event on the first day and the third day of the event, which is awesome. By the way, RKF Roland's Kayak Fishing, $25 super chat. That lure breakdown deserves a super chat. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate that. Appreciate the support from everyone who's on Patreon and all that stuff too, by the way. You guys are amazing, helping me put out the content. Also love that you guys bear with me as I'm a little bit slow to put out content at times because I want to make it really good. I'm working on the video right now you guys are going to love. I'm so pumped about it. It's the best, how to identify the best baits to use based on what you see on your fish finder. And so based on what image you see on the fish finder, you can use these guidelines to pick the perfect bait for that situation. It's a massive video. Took me a long time to make. I'm still working on it right now. So just so you guys know, the reason the content's been slow, obviously all the stuff I've been doing, but also I try to still put my 15 to 20 hours into each video, editing them, filming them, stuff like that, making sure they're as good as possible to help you guys catch more fish. So just so you guys know, that's kind of what's going on there. But anyways, Bryan Thrift finished first. Awesome. Tournament, won by 5 pounds. Kyle Walters had a great tournament as well, 13 pounds and 12 pounds, which don't seem like big bags, but on Hamilton in the summertime, those are really good bags of fish. And in the winter, it may take anywhere from 20 to 25 pounds to win a tournament. Some 2-day tournaments take 45 pounds even to win for 2 days in the winter. But in the summer, especially in August, the fishing can be really, really brutal on all these lakes around here in Arkansas. We get 100-degree heat, bright sunny conditions. These fish just get really messed up, and we'll talk about why here in a second. But even like in June, guys were catching 20-pound bags consistently. And so what you may find as you're fishing throughout the summer is that in May and June, fishing's really good. Maybe first week of July, you can still catch them really well offshore. Then you get into August and September, and you're like, man, the fishing just sucks. I don't know how to catch a fish. It is terrible. Why can't I catch him? So we're going to get into that today, why it was so tough on these guys in the Cup, how they actually managed to catch fish even in these tough conditions, and I'll be sharing what I know about this lake, what I've been doing recently in fishing trips, and also some graph images. So all kinds of stuff we're going to be sharing with you guys here. So basically, first up, just want to talk about Lake Hamilton in general. Want to give you an idea of what I've been doing on Lake Hamilton when I did a preview show for the Cup that never made the final cutting or the final edit because I lost like a 3-pounder at the boat, which you couldn't see on camera, and I didn't want to put a video of me with like a 1 2-pound fish. It just didn't seem right. But basically what I was going to talk about in that cup preview is exactly what came out in the tournament. Just like my preview for the Bassmaster Classic a couple years back on Hartwell, I nailed it perfectly, and I nailed it in this tournament again, except for Thrift. Thrift did something completely off the wall I was not expecting. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, Lake Hamilton is a pretty small lake. You wouldn't really know it, but basically you can run from here down by the fish hatchery all the way up to the top dam where some of these guys were fishing, literally in like 10 minutes if you're driving at 50 miles an hour. So this is a very short run up this lake. And so the lake was very crowded. There's a lot of pleasure boaters that were out here normally on like a Saturday. But fortunately, these guys got some really good rain and cloud cover. And we'll talk about how that affected the fish here in a bit. But basically, a lot of these guys that were doing well were fishing offshore brush piles. That's really the huge pattern out here on Lake Hamilton a lot of the year, is fishing offshore brush piles. The other pattern is just fishing down the banks, fishing shallow. It works in the wintertime with like a lipless crankbait running down the banks. It works this time of year with throwing a buzzbait and a topwater down the banks. And then the offshore brush pile deal is also good in the winter, good when you're fishing like an Alabama rig or a jig through the brush piles. And these guys were in the summertime fishing deep diving crankbaits and also fishing finesse worms like drop shot, shaky heads. And there is a ton of brush around this lake. Literally every single boat dock you see on this lake has a brush pile in front of it. It's all people who just plant brush piles for crappie, stuff like that, all through here. Every single pocket you could go to, every single point you could ever graph, they all have brush. Like, there's so much brush on this lake. It's almost overwhelming. And I'll talk about here in a second how I found some fish. Actually, we can talk about that right now, because I actually did get out here and graph around for a full day on a Sunday, which was a nightmare because there were boats everywhere, guys. It's crazy. But I do have some of my recordings here from that event, or from the, it was like, I guess I got these in July, like mid-July, so it was 2-3 weeks before the Cup. And kind of wanted to show you some of these recordings, what I saw, what I was doing. But basically, if you look at this graph image, I graphed for probably, oh my gosh, I probably graphed for 2 hours before I saw anything even worth fishing. And that's really what happens a lot of times in the summer on a lot of these lakes, is when you first get these fish offshore in like May and June, a lot of fish will pull away from the bank and they'll get out here offshore and they'll be just going crazy. You'll find them on every single little point, every single little hump. They're just literally everywhere offshore, and you can catch them super easily, and you guys have probably found that as well. June, the offshore bite is just happening. So like all these points, like a little point that sticks out right here with some brush on it. You know, the saddle between this island could be good. The tip of this island, you could have fish on all these areas. And fishing's easy. Find a bunch of brush piles, graph for 15 minutes, and you'll find a brush pile with fish in it, and you just pull up there and catch them. But that was definitely not the case in this FLW Cup. And if you look at some of the weights for these guys, as we get down to like the midway mark, you'll see that there were a lot of guys who were doing okay. They were catching anywhere from, 9 to 10 pounds. So there were still some decent bags to be caught out there. There were still some fish that were out there. Nothing crazy. But there were still guys who were catching fish. And so it wasn't like the bite was completely awful. But still, 17 pounds for 30th place is not the best showing you could really ask for the lake. 8 pounds a day. But one thing I did find is that there were quite a few fish up shallow and quite a few fish offshore. You just had to kind of take your time to find them. And so as I was graphing around for like 3 hours, I would find that if you look around these areas, you'll see I'm graphing, you'll see like a brush pile right here. You keep graphing. I was graphing some shallower stuff, some deeper stuff, have some deeper grass actually. It was out here, and then you had some brush with maybe a few fish in it there. Nothing really looking that good. Graph some more brush, more brush, more brush. I'm just basically running brush piles I knew about. That's why you see this black space. Got some bait piled up on this random little point here, but nothing really that good. Kept going. Let's see here, find something interesting. This is all real shallow. I think I was actually fishing shallow at this point. Then we get to the deeper water. And you see here we got some random stick-ups, some points, nothing really happening. You just got a lot of empty water. When I'm graphing offshore, guys, a lot of times I'll just graph for like 3 hours. And I might find 2 spots in 3 hours of graphing that are any good. And really my guidelines for what to look for offshore is I want to see 3 things. One, I want to see bait fish. And so like, for example, here you have nice balls of bait fish. Second thing I'm looking for is some sort of cover that's on the bottom. So like right here, we have a nice kind of like fallen old brush pile. So we have bait, we have brush. Last thing I'm looking for is fish. And so we actually have some fish in this image too, but they're way out here, away from the cover, away from the bait, kind of randomly suspended out here. And so to me, this doesn't really look that good. And normally what I say is when I'm fishing deeper than 10 feet of water, I want to find at least 2 of those 3 elements present. So I want to find either the fish and the bait, the cover and the fish, the cover and the bait, and a lot of times I'll stop and fish that spot. In this case, I didn't really see great cover. I saw a little bit of bait and some fish. It just didn't look perfect to me. And normally this time of year, when you find the fish, which I'll show you in a second, when you find them, it's like fireworks. It's awesome. When they're there, they're there. And so a lot of times when I'm fishing shallower than 10 foot, a lot of times you won't be able to see these fish on the graph offshore, and I'll make a video about that soon. It's one of the videos I want to make really bad. Just haven't had time for it. Really, what I'm looking for is I want to find a spot where I can see some fish kind of related to some cover that are like right here, nice little group of fish right here. There's 1, 2, 3 fish around some bait on this point. Well, if you also look, there is a ton of bait fish just everywhere off these points. There is bait fish all over the place. Some of this is actually boat wake, but some of this is just bait. And there's bait everywhere, and there's like 3 fish with a pile of bait. And there, when there's only 3 fish and there's all the bait in the world, it's really hard to catch these fish because basically they are so keyed in on the real bait that you won't be able to catch those fish because you're really competing against all these live shad. And so a lot of times I would prefer to find a spot that has smaller amounts of bait with more fish because there's less competition among the real bait versus your bait. You can catch them a little better. So I didn't even stop on these spots either. It just didn't look great. And then we'll keep going until you can see I went for a long time until I found something interesting. Again, more bait, more fish, but there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 fish in this image with a ton of bait. Not enough fish to bait ratio. And I'm trying to figure out actual numbers for that for you guys, so bear with me. I'm going to try to figure out, based on my experience, how much bait do you need on the screen versus how many fish you need to catch those fish. Haven't got that ratio determined yet, but that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to work on for you guys. Trying to figure out those rules of thumb. Right now, it's just kind of my instinct told me, like, I'm not going to fish this spot. Even though it looks pretty good, I just was like, that's not really what I want to fish. So I moved on, though I may have caught fish there. I'm not really sure. But finally, you can see how long it's taking me. Boom, here we go. Finally found a spot that I liked. This spot, if you look, has a limited amount of bait fish, just like 2, 3 balls of bait fish. It has a nice brush pile, and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9 fish around this brush pile. This brush pile had some fish around it, and I actually caught one out of this. It was like a 9-inch spotted bass. So these are pretty small fish, but right away I was able to identify a brush pile in about 20 feet of water with some brush, and I actually found that these brush piles that were in about 20 foot were a little bit too deep for these fish when they were out there, or at least when I was out there. The fish that were in 20 foot, or the brush piles in 20 foot, were having a lot of small spotted bass, and the bigger fish were in the 12 to 18 foot brush piles. And so I just kind of figured that out as I was, finishing up the day. I was only out here for one day for like 8 hours. And so obviously, you might be wondering, okay, how do these guys all find these fish? Well, a couple things. I've talked about this before in my other videos, but one, they have 3 days of practice where they can drive around and they can spend 20 to 25 hours driving around this lake looking for brush piles that have the perfect combination of depth, amount of bait, number of fish, all that stuff, which makes it a lot easier to, consistently catch fish in a tournament. They don't have to worry about finding the fish during the day. Where in my situation, I was out there for 8 hours. I had to do all the graphing, all the filming, and all the catching. And so I caught a couple fish, lost a 3-pounder, wasn't able to fully put it together. If I had another full day out there, which I didn't have, I would have been able to catch some fish and probably had, probably a decent day because I found enough spots by the end of the day. But if you're only fishing on the weekend for, a couple hours or maybe 8 hours once a week or, 2 times a month, don't get discouraged if you're fishing offshore and you only catch a couple fish and you only find a few spots, or you maybe don't put all the pieces together to the last hour of the day. Happens to me all the time, and offshore fishing takes a lot of work. And the other thing you don't see from these FLW guys, or any tournament guy that's fishing a major circuit, is they get a lot of help. They get a lot of help to find fish. They have buddies, they have local guides they call, they all are talking to each other as well. So if one guy finds them in 15-foot brush piles, a lot of times they'll share that information as well. So they have an information advantage on us normal anglers. So if you're going to the lake with no preconceived notions, no information, and you're trying to catch them offshore, it is very tough. Even for me, I can struggle to catch fish offshore a lot of the time just because it takes me a long time to figure out and put all the pieces together. So that was kind of a little bit of a rant, but hopefully that makes sense. So if we kind of keep going here, you can see there's a lot of images where these fish were just kind of all over the place. This spot was really loaded. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's bait everywhere. And this brush pile actually had some fish in it. Couldn't get these fish to bite. I think there was too much bait around, but I think if I fished it at a different time of day, this spot could have been really good. But that looked great. Didn't get any bites. And one thing I will say is, like, a brush pile like this, sometimes these fish in the summertime when it's super hot outside, they may feed in this brush pile like crazy at night. So like at 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., this brush pile might just be on fire. They're feeding like crazy, especially when there's a nice full moon like we had this last week. These fish will feed up at night. And then during the day, these fish kind of go into hibernation. They'll just kind of hang out here, just randomly just sit around, just do kind of nothing. And that's pretty common when you are fishing offshore this time of year in August. The fish will feed up at night really well, and then during the day they won't feed that much. And you almost have to force feed them to bite, or you have to get specific conditions to get those fish to actually feed. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here too. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of call out in this image, because it was very clear, is actually this nice Thermic Line. If you look at that Thermic Line, it's right at 20 feet. And so I thought that some of these fish were going to be in that 20-foot depth zone, but I found a lot of them were actually a little bit shallower than the Thermic Line, up here in like that 15-foot. That was kind of the money zone for me. And so just want to show you one other spot. This is one of the spots I found that was actually loaded, or I lost that 3-pounder, and then I caught another like 8-inch spotted bass, like a little spotted bass, and lost a 3-pounder at the boat. And this little brush pile, it's on kind of this hill of this drop. It starts in 20 foot, comes up to 10 foot, and there are fish all over the spot. It is loaded. So you can tell when you find a spot that's got them, it's got them, and you can just see it. It's like, okay, this spot. There's not a lot of bait fish around here. It's just a bunch of fish, and I was able to get a good bite out of this. And so my thought is, when I was making that preview video, I was going to talk about, okay, if I could find 10, 15 brush piles like this throughout the course of the day, because I now know the depth range, I know the area of the lake. I'll show you actually right now where that spot was, some of the spots I've been kind of talking about. Some of the areas where I was seeing these fish, one of them was this kind of this point right here. It was out here kind of randomly in the middle out here, and this is where that 20-foot brush pile was, where I said a couple of spotted bass. It was literally off this little point right here in the mouth of this big creek, and there's some fish right there off that brush pile. Also was finding some fish kind of further. Actually, here's this big hump. This is where that one brush pile that looked really good was right off this hump. Big community hole. So I probably been fished like 10 times that day. Also, this is like jet ski and pleasure boater alley, and so you're going to get destroyed by pleasure boaters through here. And then another place I was catching them was actually one of my favorite little brush tops is right over here in front of this dock right here. It was only up in maybe 12 feet of water, 8-10 feet of water, and there's a brush pile in front of this dock way back in this creek, and I caught a couple fish off of this dock. Again, smaller spotted bass, but if you could graph enough. I mean, there's brush piles in front of all these boat docks. Every single one of these boat docks almost has a brush pile in front of it. And so what you have to do is you have to really be discerning in graphing these brush piles to see, okay, that's a good brush pile, but maybe if you keep going, find another brush pile here, maybe like this brush pile right here has like maybe 1, 2, 3 dots in it. That might be a decent brush pile, but it doesn't look as good as the last brush pile. You have to be discerning on which brush piles are good, which brush piles are bad, because there's a lot of bad brush piles and not that many good brush piles. I don't think there's actually any good images left of this. But anyways, pull back up the beauty brush pile, the beauty and the brush. Okay, I can't find it. Okay, I'm not going to waste your time doing that. But anyways, let's go back up. And the other spot I was catching was actually up here in Bull Bayou. Bull Bayou is one of my favorite places to fish. Actually, some of the guys were catching them up here. Bull Bayou right here, there's a brush pile off this point right here that had some fish in it, and about 15 foot, and also off of this boat dock. That's where that beautiful brush pile was. It's right off that boat dock. and really it didn't seem to matter too much like where the brush piles were, like as far as back in the creeks, on a steep bank, on a flat bank. As long as they're in that 12 to 18 foot range, that's where a lot of these brush piles were, where the fish were hanging out. And one of the guys who actually did really well in the tournament was just kind of fishing brush piles in front of like docks that were in these two canals, right here and right here. And who was that? That was actually Jeremy Lawyer. He was fishing a lot of brush piles just up and down these boat docks in here. Just doesn't look that special. It's just there were brush piles there, and there were fish that happened to be in them, just in the middle of this, this channel, and that's where he's catching a lot of his fish, is in this area. And so, these fish weren't. A lot of them weren't on like the perfect piece of structure, the perfect points, and like this little hump or something out here. They were like on this dock, like right here, and off a brush pile out in front of that dock. Kind of random places. It's places I catch a lot of fish on Lake Hamilton in the winter, some in the summer. But if you guys have boat docks in your area, or even if you just have brush piles in your lake, a lot of times you don't have to find brush piles in August. They're on the perfect, pristine, long running out point, or a nice hump that drops into the creek channel. Like this spot looks like the beautiful spot to fish. Actually, I think I saw Brian Latimer, B-Lat, fishing off this spot, and he only caught like 5 pounds, I think, that day. And so there were some fish that were pulled up here. I actually found some fish here. They were all like little spotted bass. And I don't know why I didn't make the video, but I caught some fish. I just caught like 5 pounds of fish, which I didn't want to put a video out of me catching or maybe got like 6 pounds, 7 pounds. I don't know. Maybe I feel like I want to put out videos of me catching at least decent tournament size fish for you guys. But anyways, so that was kind of the brush pile bite. Another bite that was working really well was way up the river here, and I actually had a video about this, or had this in my video. I ran all the way up here, and this is where Scott Martin and Dakota Eber and also Alex Felix were fishing way up the river up here. And it was crazy because on Lake Hamilton, they are releasing a lot of water from Lake Ouachita because the lake has been high. And all the water down here by the dam at the bottom of the lake is like 50-degree water because it's down there like 150 foot of water. So it's super cold water. And they're releasing that through this dam. And there was a ton of current that was getting piped through the top of Lake Hamilton. And the water temperatures up here were actually 58 to 62 degrees. Really cold water temperatures up here by the dam. And the bottom of the lake, the water temperatures were like 90, 91 down here. So you had a 40-degree or a 30-degree temperature swing from up here down to the bottom of the lake. And you can watch some of the FLW live coverage, kind of see how these guys were catching them. The water from Ouachita is crystal clear. There was a bunch of, there was some big largemouth up here. Not a lot, but there were some big largemouth. And actually saw some big largemouth up here when I was doing that preview video, just cruising these banks, caught a pickerel, and I was like, if someone can figure out how to catch these fish, they are going to be able to do well in this tournament. And 3 of the top 10 did. And so I'm still like kind of kicking myself for not making that video, because you guys would have been like, wow, he knew it. He knew it was going on, because I literally had it. I called it, like almost all the patterns except for the top pattern, Bryan Thrift. And that's why Bryan Thrift is, in my opinion, the best fisherman alive right now. Jacob Wheeler will give him a run for his money. They're both really good, but for my money, I'll take Bryan Thrift any day of the week. He is my favorite fisherman. I don't talk about Bryan Thrift enough, but he is my favorite fisherman of all time. He is literally my favorite guy. He is awesome. I love the way he fishes. I love the way he approaches fishing. I'm going to make some more videos talking about how he approaches fishing, because it is really cool, especially when I get talking about more tournament stuff next year. I'll talk about how he approaches tournaments, how I at least think he approaches practice. Hopefully I can talk to him about it a little bit. I'm sure he'll be pretty tight-lipped, though, so I'm going to give you my observations, at least of what I think he does, and then we'll see if I'm right. And he may get angry at me for revealing his secrets, or he may come back and correct me and help us out, so who knows. But either way, if we won't really dwell on that shallow water stuff too much, because that's, I don't know, not my forte by any means. But you guys can watch FLW live if you want to check that out, especially day 3 coverage was really good, talking about that. But the thing I want to talk about next is actually Bryan Thrift and where he caught his fish. And so I want to pull up some footage I captured from the Cup, and I got some footage that I grabbed here just from FLW. .com or from the YouTube channel. If you want to find this footage, it's all free on YouTube for you guys. But basically, this is the morning of the final day. This is all of Bryan Thrift's fish catches, and he actually caught his fish in a really weird way. He caught them schooling first thing in the morning, and that was one of the patterns I also mentioned in my preview video that never was, and actually did find a few schooling fish, though they're all small. But basically, he found some schooling fish that were staying up on the surface because all this cloud cover. And normally the fish will school really well on Lake Hamilton and a lot of these deep, clear lakes first thing in the morning, first 30 minutes of daylight. But some days when you get the cloud cover, those fish will continue to school, and you can go and catch a lot of good fish on like a top water in these schooling areas. And really the only way I've found to find these schooling areas consistently is just for the first hour of daybreak. Basically, I will launch the boat and I will just burn around the lake, driving at like 20 to 30 miles an hour, just looking. I'll like run into these pockets, run through these areas, just looking for fish busting. And I'm sure that's what a lot of these guys were doing first thing in the morning. And you're just trying to drive into all kinds of random places, looking for places where these fish will school. And a lot of times you can find a couple spots where they come up and bust. And if you get lucky enough to find them, especially if you get those cloudy days, you can see them continuing to school, and you can just find them. But it's just kind of almost like a luck thing where you kind of just randomly pull through an area and you happen to find them. And the area that Bryan was fishing is actually a really weird area. I don't really know why he was catching him here, but he was catching him off of this. I don't know if it was on this side or it was on this side. One of these two. I think it may have been over here. I think on this side, or was it one of these two sides of the bridge? I don't remember exactly. I don't know exactly which side it was. I could probably look at the footage and get a better idea. I think it may have been this side, but either way, basically there's this old road or not this road. It's not an old road. It's a new road, or a existing road that runs across this lake. And I think he was fishing on this side. Pretty sure. Yeah, I think he was on this side. And he was catching fish down this wall here, and basically the fish were just schooling out here in the center, chasing shad, and he was catching them. And so I don't really know why they were there, what was keeping them there. I mean, if anything, there's kind of a deeper hole that's in here. And I always do find a lot of bait fish in this area in the winter, and you can see there's actually a nice point that sticks out. So they were just schooling up around this area. Don't know what was going on there exactly, but that's where he caught his limit the last day. But for the first 2 days of the tournament, there was actually a lot of cloud cover as well. And that really helped these guys catch fish. On the first day, the leader of the tournament was catching him on a whopper plopper, just fishing down some of these banks. And I actually have some footage of me catching a fish on a whopper plopper, or not, on a buzzbait, not a whopper plopper. Let me see here. Fishing down one of these banks, and basically you can see here there's just these little like narrow cuts. I'll show you exactly where the spot is here in a second on the avionics, but basically what these guys were doing, you can see it was this day, it was pretty sunny when I was fishing out there, but there was a little bit of shade in this pocket. And what you can do this time of year in August is there's these fish that are going to be feeding on bluegill. They're basically going to be feeding up on the spawning bluegill when there's a full moon. And so these bass will just roam these shallow banks, and you can throw a top water like this buzzbait like I'm fishing here and just randomly fish. You can see right here that fish bit it like 4 times. It was kind of a cool strike. I'll replay it in a second, but caught that fish on the buzzbait there. And not a bad fish. I mean, a 1.75 pound bass up shallow. But that was really the only decent fish catch I had all day. But I'll replay this. Basically, these fish, you can see how far away from the bank he was sitting, but he was basically just hanging out, chasing bluegill, and you can see he goes, bites it twice, and then I finally get him. And so kind of a cool fish strike. But had this fish, had that 3-pounder that came off, and then had a limit of spotted bass that were, maybe 14 ounces a piece. So I would have had a limit for, if you have the 3 pound and 3/4, 4.5 pounds, then maybe add 3 pounds for 4 spotted bass. I had like 7, 8 pounds. Not a great day of fishing, but for being out there one day in August, not a bad day, honestly, either. And so you want to make sure you don't get too, it's kind of weird having 2 of me on the screen. I feel like it's a little bit, I'm going to go back out of here. I don't like that. I don't like having 2 of me on the screen. We'll get Thrifty back up here. If you look at this, basically, this is kind of the cloud cover they were dealing with. But really, like I said, in 8 hours of fishing, I was able to catch like an 8-pound limit, and I had like a 3-pound bite. Kind of got fortunate to get a good bite, but that's a good day, especially in that sunny days. The day I was fishing had the bright sunny conditions, which is the days kind of what they faced when they were out here on the last day. The first 2 days they had the cloud cover. It was super ideal conditions for them to catch fish. But then on day 3, you could see the weights drop significantly because there was more boat traffic and the sun came out, which made the fishing tougher. And Thrift had the best day with 10 pounds, and then a lot of these guys had 7 to 8 pounds, which is kind of the weight I was catching. I fished there on a Sunday on the exact same conditions, bright sunny day, and had probably around that Scott Martin weight of 8 pounds, maybe a little bit less. And so if the cloud cover was up, I probably could have caught a few more fish that would have been more active. Probably could have had a better day. But not to compare myself to the FLW Tour guys, like it's a completely different thing fishing with all these boats on the lake. And so I'm not going to say I could go do that by any means. I know these guys are really good, and they were out there for a lot longer time. They have more experience than I do. Not trying to say I could go catch these fish as well as the pros could do it. I could tell you I probably had an idea of what to do. That's about all I can say. So I just want to put that out there. If there's any pros watching, I'm not trying to say I'm as good as you guys. Don't worry. Don't want some blasphemy. I don't want people coming on my Instagram private messages, slipping in my DMs, putting hate messages at me. Anyways, so going back over to the Thrift footage, if you can see he was doing this, and then the other thing he was doing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering, like, how did he catch him, is he was actually fishing in the back of Hot Springs Creek, which is a bay, and this actually threw me for a curveball, because I had no idea that you could catch fish like this. I actually thought about going back in here the day of my, when I was out there, and I was like, I bet I might be able to find something in the back of the Hot Springs Creek. There's some brush piles and stuff back here. Never went back there, though. I'm like, it's not worth it. If I had another day of practice, I probably would have gone. But anyways, caught that fish right there on a little like Striking Series 3 or like a bandit crankbait. And basically what was happening is there was fish kind of busting and schooling on these flats back in Hot Springs Creek. And he was catching fish that were kind of coming up and chasing shad on the sunny day, fishing the crankbait out there. And on the first 2 days of the tournament, he caught some really good fish on a crankbait. That was his big thing. He was catching some good fish on a crankbait back in Hot Springs Creek. But as the sun came out, these fish kind of suspended more. And if you look at that crankbait he's throwing a crankbait that's maybe diving anywhere from, like right there. See that little crankbait? That was a great shot. Good job, me. It's like a little Strike King Series 3, it looks like. It's this little minnow bait, and it looks like it only dives about maybe 7-8 feet deep. And so he's probably fishing in maybe 10 foot of water. And so this bait was getting down there and kind of targeting more of the suspended fish than the fish that were up on or down in the bottom. And when the sun comes out a lot of times this time of year, these fish will suspend, they'll chase bait, and they're chasing little bait, like that little crankbait right there. And then if you go to the next day when you by the way, this is in our pocket where we caught some fish. Look familiar to the pocket I was fishing? Yeah, it looks very familiar. Not the exact one, but similar stuff that I was fishing. But he actually pulled up here the last day and caught a couple fish on a frog, or one fish on a frog back in these little narrow little pockets. So kind of give you an idea of, at least I was fishing a little bit of the similar stuff that Thrift was fishing. So that's kind of cool. But he caught that fish in the last day. Also, he wasn't afraid to ditch his primary area and go for the shallow fish, even though he knew that he'd been catching them really well in Hot Springs Creek. He abandoned it, moved to a new area, and caught some fish, which I thought was really cool on the water adjustments and the confidence in himself. And then here's him from same area, but on the cloudy conditions. And he's actually fishing some deeper brush piles. I'll show you exactly what he's fishing here in a second, like the exact spots. There's so much I have to cover, guys. There's like talking about tournaments. There's so much that goes into it. I hope you guys are enjoying because there's so much happening. But here's Thrift again. Got some fish here. Got this really nice fish, nice 3-pounder. And if you pause that right there, you're not gonna be able to see it. One second, I'm gonna get a better image. You can't really see it very well because of the way the camera is on my thing. If you watch the footage back though, what he's fishing, what it looks like to me he's fishing, I'll pull it up on Tackle Warehouse here. I'll get out of here. But you can see he's in the middle of this bay, and these fish, when the cloud cover comes in a lot of times, they'll push a little bit deeper. They'll get on the bottom, and they'll get a little more aggressive. And it looked like he was fishing a Spro, Okay, that's not what we wanted. Spro crankbaits. He was fishing what looked like something along the lines of the Spro Little John DD60, which is kind of this it's like a flat side crankbait, dives 11 to 14 feet deep, 10 to 14 feet deep. And he was throwing it in some sort of, I don't know, like the spooky shad or the homemade shad. It looked like a homemade shad, but it looks like he was fishing this crankbait. And basically, he was cranking that thing down there. It's a smaller bodied bait, which I think is probably one of the keys. It's only 2.3 inches long, so a small profile bait, but it dives pretty deep. It has a little bit of a thinner side to it, so it's a little more subtle. And he was cranking it back in this bay. And so if we take a look at the area he was fishing exactly, he's fishing back here. If we go up from the boat ramp, back in Hot Springs Creek. And this area looks super shallow because it is super shallow, and you're catching it back in here, which I'm like, man, this does not look like the winning spot of an FLW tournament in the middle of August. But he's fishing out here, and basically what he was fishing is, if we pull up Google Earth, actually, go back in Hot Springs Creek, you'll notice that there are several little areas that you can fish, and this is actually an image when the lake is down. If we go up, the lake can be up. This is kind of what these guys were facing when they were there, full pool. But if you go to when the lake is drawn down, Thrift caught some of his fish off this point right here, right in through here, and you can see there's actually a little point. The fish were schooling up on this the final day right through here, and there's a little bit of brush and debris. You kind of see a few little kind of like laydowns and brush. That's what some of these fish were relating to. Caught some of his fish out here, and there's actually some brush piles and stuff I've graphed out there in about 8-9 foot of water. Kind of out here in the center, there's a little ditch that kind of feeds the back of this bay, and caught some fish out here. And he also got some fish off this point right here, and there's also some brush piles out here that I fished before. So there's lots of kind of random laydowns and stuff out in the middle of this bay that these fish were getting on. And really, I'm assuming what was happening is that there was just some shad that pushed up into this bay, and the fish happened to be there feeding on the shad. And so it wasn't probably a deal where these bass just, I'm sure that some of these are resident fish, they just live back here, but they were probably feeding up really well because of those shad. And the other thing that caused these fish to feed well is that cloud cover. And that was kind of the case as well for, for Kyle Walters, where he actually caught some really good fish. He actually doubled up on a 3 and a 4 pounder. If you guys were watching the live footage, it was crazy. He doubled on a 3 and a 4 pounder in the Forest Wood Cup when the fishing was really tough, and anyone would have killed for either a 3 or a 4 pounder, and he catches 2 on one cast. And I'll show you the spot where he was fishing as well. But if you look at this, you can see it's kind of sputtering rain, has some nice cloud cover, and some nice kind of wind. And what I found is in the summertime, when you can get some wind and you can get some cloud cover and maybe a little bit of rain, fish will bite really, really well on crankbaits around brush piles and offshore areas. These fish will get more aggressive. And I fish on Lake Dardanelle all the time in the summertime, especially in that July-August period. And there are days when I can go out and I can have 5 or 6 brush piles found where the fish are in those brush piles like crazy. And I'll go out one day when it's slick, calm, no wind, sun, and I'll fish those brush piles all day with like a worm, a crankbait, with everything, never get bit. I'll come back the next day when you get a little bit of wind in the afternoon, even if it's just sunny, you get like a 15-mile-an-hour wind, and you can pull up and crank those brush piles and catch 20 pounds. Or if you get some cloud cover and some rain, again, pull up those brush piles, catch a bunch of big fish on a deep diving crankbait or a worm. And so a lot of times these conditions will get these fish aggressive, and you can catch them on a deep diving crankbait or a moving bait. But on the last day, when there was no cloud cover, when it was just bright and sunny, kind of like Thrift was here on the last day, if you can kind of, this is that same spot. If you look at the last day, completely different conditions from the clouds. He caught a few fish that were kind of, you could see him actually busting over here. So there were some schooling fish, and there was, a few fish that were still up there, and he caught them on that little tiny, shallower running crankbait, those suspended bass. But he wasn't throwing that big deep diving crankbait, digging the bottom, because the cloud cover was gone. And that's what caused guys like Kyle Walters, who had caught him really well before, to not catch him very well because those conditions had changed. And if you looked at the weights, Kyle Walters still caught 7 pounds the last day, but they were all really small spotted bass, basically. And didn't catch very many fish at all, except for he caught one good one first thing in the morning, right when that cloud cover was there. But once that cloud cover disappeared after the morning, fish stopped biting, they wouldn't bite his crankbait, and he ended up with 7 pounds. And so you have to fish the conditions, you have to fish the moment to catch fish offshore. And a lot of times these conditions can cause these fish to change even day to day. And so I've been finding a lot of this happening in my on-the-water fishing lessons where I go out in guys' boats and I'll explain how to adapt these conditions on the water, where to go when it's cloudy, when it's sunny. And unfortunately, I don't film during those because I've had a couple great lessons on Table Rock where we've adjusted the conditions with the cloud cover and things like that, and put fish in the boat and showing where the fish were when it was sunny, where it's not, where they are when it's cloudy, stuff like that. Haven't been able to get a lot of that on film, unfortunately, because I've only been fishing when it's bright and sunny and no wind. Every single fishing trip, it seems like when I go out by myself, we go to the on-the-water fishing lessons and the conditions are great, which is probably good because we catch them in the lessons. But if you guys do want to book an on-the-water fishing lesson with me, again, I have one more spot available for Raleigh, North Carolina. I'll be there in September. It's a Saturday in September. If you guys want to book an on-the-water fishing lesson with me, you can just go to fishthemoment.com over here and just go to the fishing lessons tab. And I have one more spot available in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm only going to be in Raleigh probably one time in the next 2-3 years. So if you're in the area and you want a lesson, September 14th, it's a Saturday, you won't be working, it's perfect. So I have this here. Also have some lessons available in Central Arkansas in November, because I'm already booked up all the way through the end of November. And I have some available in Northwest Arkansas, one September 20th, 21st, the 27th, and 28th. So I have some in September left, and then I don't have any more. I have some in October. So I have a few left here and there, Northwest Arkansas, but really couple lesson spots. Actually, only booked 2 of these 4. Once I get one of these booked, I get rid of the other one. I only do 1 a week going forward so I can put more videos out and put more content out. So only doing 1 lesson a week. So that means that the lessons are booking up quickly. I don't have a ton of availability, guys, so definitely sign up for the lessons ahead of time if you want one. They've been really good. Have some reviews on my channel. I know some guys in the chat here have also done lessons with me, so just check that out. And then I do have the bass camp as well that we kind of talked about previously. We've got the Fisherman Bass Camp, which is also in North Carolina. Still have a couple spots open for that as well. So Fisherman Bass Camp is the first week of September, offshore fishing boot camp. So other than that, that was kind of where Thrift was catching them. Kyle Walters, wanted to show you that spot, was over here. He was fishing kind of in this area. There were some brush piles kind of I think around here-ish, somewhere in here. This is where he was fishing. I don't know exactly where, but he was somewhere in here. There's some brush, and he was cranking it, and that's kind of his spot. We caught the double 3-pounders, just a just a little drop off this island with some brush. I mean, it's not the best looking spot in the lake. It's a good looking spot, but it's not the best looking spot ever. But it just happened that this brush pile happened to be the one that was loaded up. Probably looked something similar to my Super Magic top, if I can find it again. Here we go. Probably looks something similar to this one that I showed earlier, where it's just boom. That was again another Hamilton top where I caught a 3-pounder, or lost a 3-pounder out of. But anyways, some of these tops look really good. With that cloud cover, that night bite kind of gets extended, and those fish will bite. The fish that bite at night will also feed during the day when you have cloud cover. When you have those bright sunny conditions, those fish that are feeding at night stop feeding, and you can't catch them during the day. So anyways, pretty much all I had to cover there, guys. There's probably some stuff I forgot to mention or missed, but I'll cover it in other videos otherwise. But great job, Bryan Thrift over here catching some really nice fish in Lake Hamilton. Well-deserved FLW Cup. He had 10 top 10s out of 14 cups he's fished. So he is a stick. Won several, I think a couple different Angler of the Years. Won 6 or 7 tournaments on the FLW Tour. Really good fisherman, so really happy for him. Also love he has 12 rods in the deck of the boat because he wants to be able to fish the moment and keep different baits on for different situations. Again, have a video coming out about that here next week where I don't just sit down and talk about here's this bait, here's this bait, here's this bait, buy every single color with every single size because it gets us money. That's not the videos I'm making. I'll show you how to use your sonar to identify in this image, what baits should you throw when you see this image? Should I throw a jig versus a crankbait versus a swim bait? What should I be throwing? In my videos, I'll be able to explain exactly what bait to pick up when you see this image, or when you graph over and see this image, or when you graph over and see, you guys get the idea. This image, these fish suspended up here, what do you throw in those situations? That's what the video is going to be about. And so hopefully you guys are going to be enjoying that. So other than that, want to go over to the chat and just see what you guys are talking about over here. And then for those of you who are tuning in on YouTube and just came here for the regular content, then thank you for checking out the stream. I'm going to be answering some Q&A questions live, so definitely stay tuned if you want to hear some answers to some people's questions that have been asked. Probably going to be some good information there, so stick around. But other than that, I'm going to jump over to the stream here and see what y'all have been talking about. I've been so into it, I have not even looked into what you guys have been saying on the stream. I got really into it with this stream. I love talking about all this stuff. But anyways, let's see here. Let's see here. People just giving me grief about my beard, or lack of beard, my scruff. Kirak says we got the Fish the Moment Army. That is good. Fish the Moment versus local anglers. Fight of the century. That is definitely the case. If you need a bodyguard, let me know. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I might need some bodyguards against all of these guys after I keep giving this information away. Actually, one of the YouTubers mentioned that I was talking about the Forestwood Cup. He said that at the cup, he he watches my channel, likes my stuff, and one of the FLW Tour pros reached out to him and was like, "Have you seen this guy's YouTube channel?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "He's giving away all this information. Like, do you believe this?" Because apparently, like, they're surprised I'm giving up all this information, and they're like, "Who is this guy? Why is he doing this?" And so, like, apparently some of the FLW Tour guys know my channel and they're watching it and they're like, "Man, this guy's giving up all the goods. Why is he doing this? Who is he?" I don't know. They might try to, do a covert takedown of my channel or something. So you got to watch out. So you guys got to go to fishthemoment.com. I'm going to have stuff. If anything happens, that's where you'll find me. They can't touch me on fishthemoment.com. But otherwise, I'll be here on YouTube still making the content until I get the pros, army showing up at my door, the local angler army. Either way. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the next one. Okay, Brad. Our Brandon McDade says, "Do fish suspend above the Thermic Line if the bottom has structure?" So if there's a point in 45 and the Thermic Line's in 30, this fish suspend in 30 feet on the point. Correct. That is correct. Let me pull up a recording here for you, Brandon, just to kind of give you an idea of that. Here is a Thermic Line example I'll use. So if you look at this Thermic Line here, a lot of times you'll find that the Thermic Line, if you look at the Thermic Line right there, here's that nice Thermic Line. It shows them 20 foot of water. And I actually was out on 10 Killer Lake the other day where the Thermic Line was hard capped in 20 and the fish were sitting over a point in 30 feet of water. It's probably the best example, but like, for example, like right here, here's some fish actually in the tops of some standing timber. Thermic Line is really strong right here, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a bunch of fish in the top of the standing timber right here that are set up right in that Thermic Line. And you can actually remove the standing timber sometimes, and those fish will still be set up right there, right above the Thermic Line over this point. And on 10 Killer Lake, we were catching them fishing a swim bait over, kind of counting it down to 20 foot and reeling it. And we were basically just fishing the Thermic Line almost like that was the bottom of the lake. Just counting it down, reeling it through those fish. Caught a couple fish doing that. So a lot of times it's better if you can find something like a tree or a brush pile that's on a point that then tops out at the Thermic Line, and those fish will sit up right in the top of that tree or stuff like this. That helps a ton. This is normally what I do, like on a table rock. I would find the Thermic Line, then find standing timber that tops out in 20, 30 foot where the Thermic Line is. That's where I catch him. Let's see here. Keep going down. And then Timo says, don't forget to hit the like button for Johnny. Thank you, guys. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the videos. All the normal YouTuber stuff. Helps grow the channel. Not really that worried right now about growing the channel. Best way you guys can support me really is just tuning in for the live streams. Also, if you book a one-on-one video lesson or a on-the-water fishing lesson with me, that helps a ton. Just to support me as I'm continuing this journey on my own business and leaving the corporate world. And then also, if you want to support me, you can support me on Patreon, which is just right over here in the center of the screen. It's just a monthly donation page. You can give a small donation to help me keep me going, keep me putting out the content. Let's see here. Timo asked another question. He has some question marks, but AS Fishing Life says, I used this graphing method to catch fish last week offshore. I usually saw 2 or 3 balls of bait and caught a couple bass. So he's kind of referring to the seeing some bait and seeing some fish. So awesome. I'm glad that helped there. And then Timo says, 2 benefits you never talk about by fishing offshore versus beating the bank is a wasp net. No wasp nets and no snakes. That is true. No wasp nests, wasp nests, and no snakes. That's very true. Great thing about not fishing up shallows. You don't have to deal with that. I feel like I get hung up equally, bad though, where I'm going to get hung up in brush piles or I'll get hung up underneath the deep trees, skipping baits underneath there. But when I do go in for the baits up in the trees on the bank, I am worried here in Arkansas with water moccasins and stuff falling into the boat. Had that happen almost before a couple times. Not fun stuff. And he says the only good snake is a dead snake. That is very true. Herb, good to see you. Late to the party, but good you're here. And Gabe says, fish that dock and pile before. So seen some of the spots I'm fishing. Okay. And who is this right here? Brian Hopkins says, I finally got to listen to this live. I never miss anything. Just have to listen to it the following day. Just want to say thank you, Johnny, for everything you do. Thank you, Brian. Glad you could catch the stream. And then see here. Jamie Ferguson says, what would you charge to come out to my lake and show me how you would fish it? Jamie, I do on-the-water fishing lessons here in Arkansas if you're in this area, and then I will be traveling around the country next year and this year. I'm going to give you guys an idea I'm going to be doing bass camps kind of around the country. Got the Fish Mode Bass Camp, as you can see here, and I'll also be doing one-on-one video or one-on-one on-the-water lessons while I'm in that area. And so my plan, at least next year, don't hold me to this quite yet, but I want to do one in Texas, one in Tennessee, one kind of in the East Coast, and then maybe one in the Northeast potentially, kind of like up by New York range. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I might have to switch that around just based on my schedule, what's going on, where things happen. But for now, that's kind of my goal. But if anything, I'm hoping to do this business if you guys keep being great supporters of my business and of my channel. Hoping to be able to continue this business for the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years, who knows how long, and be able to reach all parts of the country. And so obviously not super helpful if you want a lesson right now, but I will be traveling around quite a bit. And if you are in the Arkansas area, maybe eastern Oklahoma, southern Missouri, places like that, I can definitely, even up in like Tennessee a little bit, I can try to make a trip over there. So just let me know and send me an email, fishthelimit1@gmail.com. Let's see here. And then okay. Timo, thanks for keeping up all of the info for the guys here in the stream. Appreciate that. So Timo says, do you always want to hit the bottom with a crankbait? Most of the time, right here, Thrift wasn't actually hitting the bottom, I don't think. Oh, I don't have the video up anymore. I don't think he was hitting the bottom in that situation, but most of the time I like to bang that crankbait off the bottom. If I'm fishing, like, let's say there's this little ledge right here. There's a little point. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 fish stacked up right there. If I was fishing with the crankbait, I want to hit that the bottom with the crankbait most of the time. Having that crankbait deflect off the cover, that's what gets those fish to react to that bait most of the time. If you do have just cloud cover and wind, sometimes you can fish that thing just randomly in the middle of the water column, reel it a few times, stop it, reel it a few times, stop it, stuff like that. So that does work. But in that case, I'd much rather prefer fish like a jerkbait or something like that. If I can get the bait deep enough in that water column, the jerkbait's definitely going to work better if I'm not hitting the bottom. Let's see here. And Kirex says, stop being so modest, Johnny. Yes, you could. Their pre-fishing involves watching at Fish the Moment. Appreciate that, Kid Iraq. Let's see here. And then Kirex says, why years before you come back to the Carolinas? Just though I'm trying to get back there. I'm trying to get to everybody, but we're gonna try to get back as best I can. If I show up for if I have to go to a classic or something like that, if there's one over there are tournaments over there quite a bit. If I'm more in the area of any place around, definitely going to try to get there. Maybe do a couple lessons while I'm there. So I'll keep everyone informed. I'm gonna try to keep my calendar thing updated on my website. Again, trying to keep 12 different pots going at the same time, and I'm burning some stuff. I'm undercooking other things. Some things are coming up just perfect. It's like this bass camp, it's coming out just right. But some stuff is just not going as well. Just to be, it's going okay, but I'm just not, like the podcast, for example. We tried it. We tried a new recipe. We realized that maybe we need a couple more years of culinary experience to be able to make that podcast. Some more time on our hands, stuff like that. But I do have the events page here at the bottom of my website. Right now it has a lot of Latin stuff, and so none of this means anything at the moment, but I'm going to start updating this pretty soon once I get into September here on my website. But anyways, let's see here. And then Chippo Fishing's a subscriber for years. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate the support there. And then, oh man, I need to get back up here. I'm losing it. Talking for an hour, guys. I'm getting on the downturn. You guys know how it is. My top spinner says, is it best to match bait fish as in size of lure? Yes, that is huge. So I was actually on 10 Killer Lake last week, and the bait fish out there were tiny, 2 inches long, and we couldn't catch fish. We were trying to fish baits like a striking shadalicious. One second, I'm not spelling that right. All these made up words are hard to spell. Striking shadalicious. We're fishing like this in the 4.5 and 5.5 inch size swim bait. Could not get bit. But then we went to a little Kitech, little tiny swim bait like the Easy Shiner, but fishing it in the 2 and the 3 inch sizes. Those were getting bit. And so sometimes you have to match the hatch, and if those fish are feeding heavy on those 2 and 3 inch shad, you have to go to that smaller bait, just like Thrift is doing with that Spro crankbait. Smaller shad for smaller bait. And then when you do get some bigger shad, you can go to a striking 6XD, where that has a 3 or 4 inch body, and it matches the size of the gizzard shad a little bit better. And so you have to match the size of your crankbaits, the size of your plastic worms, the size of your swim baits, a lot of times to the size of those bait fish to get more bites. Haven't talked about that a lot in my videos. Again, making more bait focused videos as I get the information together. I'm really more focused on areas, but I want to keep it as comprehensive as possible on the channel. So let's talk about baits when I think I have something that's worth sharing. I still am working on a theory on that basically, and I haven't quite got anything quite solid enough that I want to share it with you guys. When I share stuff with you guys, I want to make sure I've done a lot of research on it. I feel very confident that what I'm sharing is actually true, because there's a lot of misinformation out there in bass fishing. A lot of people who claim to be experts that will just say stuff that other people have said before, and that has regurgitated information, and I hated that when I was younger. I want people who actually, if I'm going to say something, I want to tell it to you because I know it works, and I have video evidence to back it up of me catching fish, stuff like that, rather than just kind of BSing you guys. So trying as best I can to stay true to that, and I'm hoping to stay true to that for as long as the channel is out there and as long as I make fishing videos, because bad information can be just as hurtful to you as no information. Actually be more hurtful if you get bad information. So I want to make sure all the information you guys are getting from me is grade A, A+, best information you can get that, at least in my opinion, works. And then I'm also going to also give caveats to say this is why it might not work. This is things I haven't tried before, so try this. Keeping it 100% transparent and honest with you guys so that I'm not hurting you guys. I'm actually just helping you. So hopefully that makes sense. And then Dallas Smith says, any decision on Rayburn in November? Probably going to be end of November-ish, kind of somewhere in there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be going to Texas. I just need to figure out exact dates and timing yet. Still a little bit on the fence on when, or not on the fence, but like kind of not sure yet. I want to figure out how this bass camp goes and how much time I need, if I can only go for a week in Texas, 2 weeks, stuff like that. But I'm definitely going to try to make a trip to Texas. If I come to Texas, I'm your partner if you need one. Appreciate that, Timo. And then JT is over there in Connecticut waiting for me to come over there. I'll definitely try to swing by if I'm ever up in that area, JT, and grab some lunch. I guess there's a hater that gave you a thumbs down. There's always one person who gives me a thumbs down the second my video launches. They probably have me on notifications, and they're like, this kid, they're either thinking he is too young and his facial hair is not grown out enough for me to like the video because he can't know about fishing if his facial hair is struggling that bad. Or he's thinking, man, he's giving away all my secret spots. I don't like this guy. I don't know which one it is. It's got to be one of those two. There's only two options in that situation. Those are the two options. And then must have been Bryan Thrift. Hope not like Bryan. He does have a nice facial hair though too, so that could also be part of it. And where are you doing a bass camp? I'm going to be doing when. I don't know if it's where or when. I'm going to try to do one probably somewhere, I don't know, the Castle Boykin. Is that the launch ramp up there? Or somewhere in there. I don't know exactly where I'll be doing it, but yeah. And AS Fishing Life says, thank you for all you do for us. Keeps me motivated, and you always have great ideas for me to turn to after a bad fishing day, or to how to turn a bad fishing day into a good one. Awesome. Appreciate that, man. And then, let's see here. And Rodney says, I'm out. Outstanding, Johnny. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work. So cool. It's FLW Tour Bros. What Randy Crabtree says. So anyways, John says, can you do a video on how to keep people from following you around on your home lake during offshore fishing months? Trick, don't put a yellow camera pole in your boat, and don't fish offshore. Those are the two ways to stop people from following you around and marking your waypoints, because otherwise they will follow you. They will graph over your stuff. What you have to realize is that even if they graph over your stuff, a lot of times they're not going to know what they're looking for. They're going to fish it at the wrong time, with the wrong bait, in the wrong situation. And so even if they know your spot's there, a lot of times it doesn't really matter, because if they don't know exactly what's down there, they're not going to fish it right. So I would just say that's just kind of, I guess, comes with the territory. It's just the nature of the beast, kind of. And so it's just going to happen. So you just have to be a little bit better than those other anglers. And it sucks because it's going to happen. There's no way to stop that. It just happens to me all the time. I fish offshore on a spot where I know I'm fishing stuff that is just stupid. Like, I would never catch fish there. I don't know why I'm fishing it. I just graph it just because I don't know why. There's nothing there. I'll drive away and someone will pull right behind me and graph it. And I just know that they're graphing stuff just because I know they're not fishing there. And then they'll graph over me like, ooh, and they'll pull up a rod and they'll start fishing. And I'm like, I know you're not fishing anything because I just graphed over that and it's nothing. I just randomly pulled out here in the middle just to kind of see. And so stuff happens all the time. So anyways, and Drew, I don't have a breakdown on Hudson, but I do have a couple videos on Hudson actually on my channel. If you go back into the old videos, no, it's not super helpful. I can pull up. It's like how to catch fish in late summer, and I'm holding up 2 fat bass like this. It's from like 2 years ago. So I have a couple of videos. I think I have 2 videos on Lake Hudson. It's a how to find bass in late summer part 1 and part 2. It's a part 1 and part 2 video from 2 years ago, and I was catching them this time of year. Caught some good, I caught like a 13 or a 15 pound limit in like an hour on Hudson. So definitely go check that video out if you haven't, and that will help a lot. There's actually 2 videos on it, and I show all my spots. So anyways, that's it, guys. Hour and 12 minutes in. I want to jump off here, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed the stream. Still want 238 people on, which is awesome. Always appreciate the support from you guys sticking around. I know you guys, these are the loyal fans. If 236 of you are sitting here just looking at me on like a tiny part of a small screen with a Striking 6XD up on the screen. So I know you guys are the true fans. I appreciate that as always, and I'll be back again next week 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for another Fish the Moment live stream. I'm going to be talking about how to fish those dog day of summer conditions. The topic I was going to do today, I'm just going to push it forward to next week, and I'll be able to share some of my graph images from my fish finder, share where I've been catching my fish, what I've been doing to find these fish in these really tough conditions, things like that. So thanks again for checking out my live stream. Thanks again for all the support, for everyone who's on Patreon, everyone who's donating. Thanks to the super chats today. We got Butch Payton with a $20 super chat to get me some razors to shave my scruffy face, and then RKF Rolando's kayak fishing for the lure breakdowns. They deserve that super chat. And again, if you guys do want to get my top baits and want to see which baits are my top baits, go over here to my website, fishmoment.com, go top baits, and I have free PDF files, free, with my top fall baits, my top offshore summer baits. And if we pull up these PDF files again, I'll just pull up one more time just to kind of give you an idea of what you're in for. I pulled up the offshore ones earlier. I'll pull up the fall one this time. Is you get all my baits by type, by color. Tackle Warehouse link there for you. Click on that. Go straight to Tackle Warehouse. If you use the link, I get a small cut of the profits. Always appreciate that, guys. That's why I can put these out for free, is because I am working with Tackle Warehouse on their affiliate program. So I can put out all these baits, and then if even a portion of you use these links and purchase one or two of these baits, really helps me out and allows me to put out free content like this for you guys. So got all of these different baits I like to throw, colors, and if you want to know how I'm fishing them, where I'm fishing them, tune into the live streams, tune into the videos. This is just the best way for me to get. I don't like making bait videos. Everyone does bait videos. This is my form of a bait video. I'm just going to give you all the information so you can look at it. It saves you 20 minutes of listening to me talk. It's all compiled for you nice and easily. I think that's the best way to do it. So anyways, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks again for checking the live stream, and I'll see you guys next week, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Fish the Moment YouTube channel. See you guys next week.